So how do you do it? Talk us tactically, like a little bit of LinkedIn for Dummies, Instagram or TikTok for Dummies,
Yeah.
newsletter for Dummies. Let's start with LinkedIn.
This point is the same for all social media platforms. If you want to gain millions of followers, you will need like a team. And that's like a team of friends. They don't have to work with you, but it's that sort of principle that like 1+1 does equal 3. If I have 2 or 3 of my close friends who are starting the journey at the same time, we're going to engage each other's content. We're going to push each other.
And you have the accountability. You're doing it every day. I'm doing it every day.
The accountability is a huge part of it. So, people will look at my audience now and be like, wow, it's unbelievable. Like it's unachievable, etc. But I built it in 18 months. I quite literally built the whole audience, bar a little bit to start with on LinkedIn, in 18 months from scratch. And I have, a few close friends who we said to each other, we're going to do this every single day. And so even on days I down, I didn't want to ruin their accountability. And so I think that concept is super important early on, is to find people who want to achieve the same things, push them. And, you can be competitive with them. You can be happy for them. You always want to grow a little bit more than them. I mean, that's just human nature. But having that crew is key, because I have like 4 or 5 people around me that post similar stuff that I do and so forth. But they always make mistakes. And then I learn from their mistakes before I even post. And so my sort of iteration wheel is just faster than if I was on my own. So step 1, I would say, like, get some friends who are doing it. Or in my regard, I was a smaller creator who reached out to bigger creators and said, I want to learn from you. I would like engage your content as much as I possibly can. I will support you, promote you. I used to do posts about big creators and how amazing they were, but it was me trying to, I suppose, curry favor with them. And then I got into this big group of people who are professional creators. And I'm not, I would say business owner first. But then I was pushed so hard by them to keep up with their levels. So that was, I think, step 1 is accountability partners, and, don't try and do it on your own. And then I suppose tactically, I would put together your why more than anything. Because again, if you're posting 365 days a year, it is exhausting. Like, what the hell are you going to talk about? Like, don't be afraid to repeat the same thing. So I would always say, like, with my content, there will be repetition every 3 months of old stuff. It might be in a slightly new format. It might be in a new image. It might be drawn differently, written slightly differently, but conceptually very similar. And that's because, again, there's not that much new in the world. You actually, especially if your audience is growing quickly, like I, for example, on LinkedIn, I gained 50,000 followers in a week. So that those 50,000 followers presumably not seen so much of my previous stuff. And so if you sort of extrapolate, in a few months' time, there'll be hundreds of thousands of my audience who haven't seen many of my old posts. So I think repetition is key. So that brings you to the idea of like having tenets that you rely on. Like, these are the things I believe in. These are the things I live. And so these are the things I will talk about. Accountability, and then putting your plan together. And then I suppose the experimentation part is key. So if you are posting every single day, you've got to be super intentional about understanding why things are working and why they aren't. Don't keep, like, I know so many people who post the same stuff all the time. Never works, but they never seem to want to experiment with it. Whereas I would always say, if you want to grow rapidly on social media, it's actually about understanding pre-qualified content, as in pre-verified viral content. So for example, I talk a lot about leadership, and I did this post a couple of years ago called, people talk about red flag all the time in leadership. I did a post called the green flags of leadership. I hadn't really seen it before, but it was an idea that I had with a team. That piece of content, anyone can post that now and it will go viral. And I see people post it all the time and it goes viral. And so,
as in they're reposting your post.
They're taking the idea of green flags and what I posted originally, which for LinkedIn's like, it was like 150,000 likes or something in like a couple of days, like 7 million views on one post. Now people can post that as a concept regularly and they will get traction. They might have to change up the what for them signals green flags in leadership. And so I don't think people need to work as hard as they are. Like, you can take a lot from what happens out there, from other creators you love. And that's like my main point to people who are new. Find 5 to 10 creators that you absolutely love. You love their content, And it might be you love this stream of content from one or this stream from another, and then bring it all together in your inspiration. And so that's exactly what I did when I first started, posting. It's like, I love personal development from this guy, or I love how deep this person goes on business stuff. And then it was like, okay, I can kind of see my brand of content, which is things I'm super interested in, but also I know this stuff will do well. And then, be ruthless. Like, I actually am pretty obsessed with AI, because I think that it just feeds so much of what I've done previously in my life. I'd love to have had it when I was first starting businesses, etc., or in school. But even if you don't, I would force yourself to talk about topics that are in the news, because if you're smart and newsjack on a platform like LinkedIn, you can just go viral overnight type thing. And if you're thinking ruthless efficiency with growth, if you're recommending 4 or 5 other creators and their amazing work, they're more likely to recommend you back. You're more likely to curry favor with them. Their audiences might see your work. They might reshare you. And so you've got to think about content first and foremost. It's like the absolute key. But then you've got to think about distribution more than anything, which is, how is my content, when I have no followers, going to go out into the masses? And it's like, if you're doing it completely authentically, you would talk about lots of other people, you would engage. But the slightly less authentic way, but very effective way of doing it is, there's 30 other creators who talk about the same thing. You engage them, they engage you. And even if you do it officially or unofficially, if you're just starting your account, I would say, if you're going to spend years and years and years focused on content creation, why would you not give yourself the leg up? And people will hate me saying that, and they'll say it's inauthentic or whatever.
The game is the game.
The game is the game.
What's next? How do you ace the game on LinkedIn from 0 to 1 or 0 to 1,000?
Well, all of that stuff is what you need to do to get good. I think to get yourself to a point where you're doing quite well and you're gaining traction, to level to the point where a couple of my friends and myself are, where I think I have the fastest growing LinkedIn account that there is. Certainly whenever I look at the rankings, it will always be the fastest growing. And now it's probably at a point where on average I'll get, just on LinkedIn, 20 million views a week, which is obviously slightly mind-blowing. If you want to do that, then I think that you have to super professionalize the whole thing. It has to be a pretty military operation.
So what does that mean? What is your military operation?
So for me, I have a full-time staff member who just works on my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And that is sourcing content. It's looking at what's performed previously really well on my content, other people's content, what's in the news. How do we then create deeper content, more complex content for people to engage with? And so it brings us to this point, which is like, okay, there's different types of content that have different objectives and different outcomes. So there is content that gains huge virality, views and impressions, which won't convert to followers. So let's just hold that here for a second. And then there is content that really makes people consider and think and want to save your content. And we keep that right here. If you post this stuff all the time, you'll have very low impressions. You might convert followers at a good ratio, but you're not going to grow very quickly. And so accounts like mine, what I will try and do is I will try and post high virality stuff. So stuff I know has gone viral previously of my own stuff or other people's, and try and put a more complex message to it. So you might post something, a well-known meme or image about failure, or these sort of workplace graphics about failure, but then I'll write a complex understanding of how I've dealt with failure and how you can overcome it. But I know that post will do well. That will gain millions of impressions. The next day, I will do a post on how to use AI to create content, and it will be a deeper, more complex, infographic or so forth that people will see and they'll want to save. And so they immediately have to follow you for more content like that. Or even you could say, if you want me to send you it, you can subscribe to my newsletter. And so you've got to become very intentional about the type of content that you do. And then again, if you want to promote your business or something, you want to be doing that after a couple of high virality, high impression posts, because again, your business stuff isn't going to go viral immediately. So you've got to kind of play the game a bit to give it a bit of a launch.